one of the other things we talked about in introduction, and I just love all of the content that you've put out there. I know you have written a ton of articles. You've done, like I said, a TEDx talk. And so how did you get yourself out there to speak on TEDx and to do all these articles for these big newspapers and things like that? And feel free to name some of them. But how did you get that ball rolling, that people see you as a subject matter expert on this topic?
Yeah, so I think it starts first with kind of a general self-awareness, right? So you gotta determine in your mind that this is something that you want. And I tell people all the time, I'm definitely an introvert. So, doing podcasts, being interviewed, doing a TED Talk, putting myself out there, as you put it, is not natural to me. It's something that, in the beginning took a lot of effort. I'm also somebody who does not like rejection. I'm somebody who, and I think a lot of people can relate to the struggles of, fear and fear paralysis. But what I've been able to do, really kind of echoing through all the work, personal and professional, is take that fear or take those hard lessons and use it to my advantage. So if I could just go back to the last point where we're talking about strategies around paying late. It's the first time that I've ever articulated this, but I grew up in a poverty environment. And so I remember seeing instances where my mom would pay like half the Con Ed bill. Con Ed is like the electricity growing up in New York. It's like, what do we have? EverSource. Con Ed is like EverSource in New York. And so half of the Con Ed bill would keep the lights on, but there was still a balance bill, right? So you put two and two together and you realize, wait a second, you can put something towards the bill, but not pay the whole bill so that you can stretch your money to pay other bills. And so taking it out of the context of poverty and putting it into a context of what is benefiting you in the greatest way financially, right? Whether that's investing or saving, budgeting, what have you. I've been able to take that lesson and use it in a way that's been beneficial to me. Same thing with my being an introvert, right? Same thing with my being fearful. I identified that I had a message that I wanted to share, a message that was worth sharing. And I said, you know what? I want to get into a space not only where I can embark on entrepreneurship, but also where I can make a difference. I can make a difference with my experiences, with my story, my voice. And so getting over the fear required practice, right? Getting into environments where I'm forced to talk, I'm forced to present, and interacting with different audiences of different levels. So I think the first time that I started doing presentations was with young people, less than high school age, right? And they're going to be very critical sometimes and very honest other times.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Yeah. And I just want to shout out Brandon Frame and Black Man Can. Brandon actually gave me my first opportunities to speak. And really it's kind of based off of volunteer. So there was no like pay involved, but I had the opportunity to go to different places and participate in his summits by talking about my first published book, Mentorship, the Playbook, and what is mentorship, and getting in kind of a cadence around talking about things that I knew I had a subject matter expertise around, but how do I translate that in an engaging way with an audience that is going to be very frank with you about how they feel. So when I pivoted my strategy from talking about mentoring to talking about personal finance specifically, I had already built up those muscles and saying, okay, I feel comfortable enough getting in front of an audience. I know that more times than not, I know more on this topic than most people who I'm going to be presenting to. And for the individuals that do know more than me, well, we can have an engaging conversation, right? So I can't lose. Now, leading up to TED, that was, I'm a big believer in the law of attraction. That was really an exercise in manifestation. The year before I did my TED Talk, I decided that I wanted to establish credibility in the speaking circles as quickly as possible. And how do you do that, right? Besides TED, TED is like the highest form of credibility there is for a speaker. And so I wrote it down as a goal. And I think that's important to underscore there. First self-awareness. Second is, writing it down as a goal, and then taking steps, actionable steps towards the accomplishment of that goal. I reached out. First of all, I did research on how do you get involved with TED? Like, what's the difference between TED, the TED conference, and TEDx? Okay, where is the closest local TEDx to me? Found out that there was one in Hartford. So then I reached out to the organizers, and I'm like, hey, how do I get involved with this? And they told me that I had to apply and keep checking the website, what have you. So I said, I'm gonna do one better. I went on their Facebook page, I went on their Instagram page, I went on their Twitter page. I turned on post notifications so that as soon as they announced that applications would open, I would know. Once I turned on the post notifications and I got word that applications were open, I applied. And I feel like, the universe conspires to make the things that you want to have happen. If you are determined that you want that thing to happen. So, following like this order of operations, self-awareness, determining that this is something that I want to do, creating a plan, writing it down, taking actionable steps towards accomplishing that plan. So reaching out, finding out what's involved and getting in that space. And then, ultimately you got to have a good talk. So, originally when I pitched TED, I was going to talk about the relationship between homelessness and financial education. Because I had started a nonprofit that focused on homelessness. But my talk morphed as I kind of got through the different stages of their vetting process. And the biggest takeaway for me with TED is that you're not delivering a motivational talk. You're sharing an idea. Actually, that's their theme. Ideas worth sharing. And so, how do I take my story and create an idea that's worth sharing around that story? And at the time, I was also working on Financially Irresponsible, so there were definitely intersecting synergies there. And then I get to game day, right? Showtime, I'm standing behind stage, they're getting ready to call me out, and I'm freaking out. Like, I could feel like my heart in my throat. And the organizer who was backstage with me said, at this point, nothing else matters. Go out there and do the best that you can. You've gotten this far, right? Like, you are on the TED stage. And that calmed me down a little bit. But when I got on stage, I think there was maybe 2 instances where I forgot my entire talk. And I'm just like, no, like, this can't happen right now. And I'm looking at the audience, and I'm seeing all the eyes, and I'm seeing the light, and I'm seeing the clock tick down, and I'm just like, I gotta get it back. So fortunately I did. And most people watching the talk won't even realize that happened, but inside I was definitely freaking out. So that's how I got on TED. And then with regard to the publications,